Hey, your YouTube search history tells me that you're going to be leading worship for the first time here coming up. So I thought I'd share with you 5 tips for people who are leading worship for the first time to help you lead worship well. Coming up. Hey, Spencer here from leadingworshipwell.com. This is the place where we talk about how to lead yourself well, lead your church well, and lead worship well. I hear that you're leading worship for the first time, or maybe you've already led once or twice and you just want to improve upon what you already did. Well, I've been leading worship for about 15 years now, and I remember the first time that I led worship. And not only that, but leading worship at different places along the way is always a new experience. And so I've got some tips that I want to share with you to make sure that the first time that you lead worship goes as well as it can possibly go. Before we get into that, though, I want to hear from you. What are you most nervous about for leading worship for the first time? Is it like the musical side of things? Is it leading your people? What are you most nervous about? Be a little authentic, vulnerable down in the comments below. I want to encourage you. So let me know down in the comments below, and I'll talk to you in a second. Thanks so much for leaving your answer down below. Let's get into these 5 tips for first-time worship leaders. The first tip for leading worship for the first time is this: practice, practice, practice. Don't click off the video yet. I know you probably heard that a million times. You already knew that you needed to practice, but I'm talking about practicing the musical side of leading worship. Make sure that you have all of your songs down and you know them as well as you can possibly know them, because that's going to free you up to actually lead worship. You see, if we want to lead worship, it's not just about playing some songs. That's part of it. But we aren't just up there to make sure that we can get our way through these songs. We want to know these songs forward and backwards as well as we possibly can. And your definition of as well as you possibly can is going to change over time. But put in the work where you feel comfortable with leading your songs so that you can switch from leading your songs to leading the people of your church. Get to a place where you are so comfortable with leading the songs, playing the songs, that you can actually lead the people of your church, because that's what it means to be a worship leader. So pick some songs that you know and focus more on the worship leading side of things. I just went through this process with my worship team. I've got a new worship team here at my church I just put together, and we got some new equipment. We upgraded our equipment here at my church. We got some in-ear monitors that my worship team had never used before, and it was such a blessing that we spent 3 months running through our songs for the first Sunday, which sounds like a lot of time because we ran through them over and over again for 3 months. But since we knew those songs forwards and backwards, whenever we implemented the new technology into our worship leading, we didn't have to focus on, okay, what part am I playing? Where do I come in? Where do I cut out? Stuff like that. We just knew it, which meant that we could focus that energy on the new equipment and learning how to use that. And then on top of that, more importantly, leading the people of their church. And the same is true for you. There's a lot of new things that you have to navigate as a new worship leader. And the one thing that you can control and know that you have down is learning your music. So practice, practice, practice. Make sure you know the musical side of things so that you can focus on leading your people whenever you actually lead worship. Tip number 2, let's talk about song selection. This is a classic mistake that new worship leaders make, is that we just pick songs that we want to sing. Maybe you already have your set list planned out for that first time that you're leading, and you're like, I love these songs. I've got some amazing songs picked out. But I want you to think, are these songs that my church actually knows? Or are these just songs that I want to play? I'm telling you, don't miss out on this one. It's so much better to get up in front of your church and have them sing along with you than for you to just sing at them because they don't know the songs that you're singing. So pick songs that your church already knows and be humble enough. Maybe your church is like still playing Blessed Be Your Name and Open the Eyes of My Heart, and you don't want to play those songs. But if you pick those songs, people will be able to participate in worship as opposed to you picking some new Bethel or Hillsong song that they've never heard of. I'm telling you, this is the key to having a successful first time of worship. So if I could convince you of one thing, it would be to not pick songs that you just want to sing, that you think are cool, that are from some new band that nobody else in your church has ever heard of. If you've been attending your church, you know what songs you've been singing. So pick those songs and lead them, and it will have a drastic impact on the engagement of your church during the first time that you lead worship. Number 3, focus on leading your church. And I want you to think about this 2 ways. Number 1, focus on leading your church and not just leading songs. I already talked about that back in point 1. Our job as worship leaders is not just to play songs and make sure that we know the chords and know the melodies and stuff. We are actually leading our church, which we're going to talk about in the next point. So I'll expound on that here more in a second. But also focus on leading your church. Focus on leading your church. Not somebody else's church, not what you've seen the people at Bethel do, not what you've seen the people at Hillsong do, or insert whatever ministry you want to insert here. You are in your church. You know the people of your church. You know what songs they need to sing. Think about that whenever you're picking your songs. What is going on in the life of my church right now, and what songs can I choose to help them respond to what's going on? If you can answer that question, your congregational engagement when you lead for the first time will go through the roof. So focus on leading your church. And you have a unique, maybe you're nervous right now because you're like, well, I can't lead like those people that I've seen on YouTube leading. But you have a unique advantage in leading your church, and that is that you are a part of your church. Honestly, most of the people in your church would love to have you lead them in worship as opposed to some worship leader who's really good, but they don't actually know the people of your church. Your church knows you and they trust you. And maybe you've grown up in your church and they've known you since you were a little kid. They're going to be so proud of you if that's the case whenever you step on stage and lead for the first time. And you have had this amazing opportunity throughout your entire life at your church to build trust with them. And so you've got, however old you are, if you're starting and you're like 15, 16, maybe you're leading in your youth group, whatever, like you already have a relationship with the people that you're leading, and that's an amazing advantage. So focus on leading your church. Think about, what do the people in my youth group, what do the kids in my youth group, the students in my youth group, the young adults in my youth group need to sing? And then do that. Don't just pick whatever Bethel was doing or Hillsong was doing. Focus on leading your church. Number 4, super, super important, plan your speaking transitions in advance. First of all, you need to know where your speaking transitions are going to be. This is what makes a worship leader. I'm going to say it again, drill it into your head. Worship leaders don't just play songs. We lead people. And if you want to lead people, the best way to do that are in your speaking transitions. So if you need help with your speaking transitions, I have a whole playlist, a whole series of videos that I did on speaking transitions, which I'll link in the description below. What to say while leading worship, the ultimate guide. It'll take you through the step-by-step process. But just real quick, think about your set list, the songs that you've picked. Think, how am I going to transition between these songs and the other elements of the service? Where do I need to pray? You probably, if you're opening your service, you need to say something at the beginning to get them standing. Think about what that looks like. And then plan those speaking transitions out in advance and say, okay, this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, good morning, insert church here, or good evening, youth group. Let's stand and worship together. We're going to celebrate the goodness of God. He is the God that never fails. He is the God who has a plan for all things and is working all things for his good and our good and his glory. however you want to say it, whatever makes sense going into your first song. Check out that link in the description below to the series that I put together, and that'll help you formulate that. But the key is to plan it in advance. Don't just think it's going to automatically happen. You have so many things that you're going to be thinking about when you lead for the first time. So just program this in from the beginning. And by the way, I still do this when I lead worship. I still plan these moments in advance. So it's not just that you're a beginner that you need to plan this in advance. This is what all worship leaders should be doing. And finally, number 5, I just want to put you at ease and encourage you to have a long-term mindset. If this is your first time leading worship, or even your second or your third time leading worship, you have so many more opportunities to lead worship. So just enjoy the first time. There's 52 Sundays in a year. You're going to have 52 more chances to lead worship this year or this coming year. So just have a long-term mindset. You're not going to get everything perfect the first time. Just focus on leading your people. People will forgive you. You're leading the people of your church. You've built trust with them. They have a relationship with you. You have an amazing advantage in that. People will just be proud of you. So take some of the pressure off to lead like these people who have been leading worship for 20, 25 years. Just take a deep breath. Practice your songs. Plan your speaking transitions in advance. Pick songs people know, and you'll do an amazing job. If you still want a few more tips, I put together a free audio training called 5 Tips to Instantly Improve Your Worship Leading. You can check it out in the description below. I think this will really help new worship leaders, just like yourself, improve your worship leading. So check that out in the description below, 5 Tips to Instantly Improve Your Worship Leading. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me today. Good luck on leading worship for your first time. It's going to be amazing. Until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.